Dixon, Phil S. Dixon, and this is the October 2nd, 2025 edition of This Day in Black Baseball History. Once again, if you join me on Facebook, I'm probably because I have the allowance to use more words, it would be This Day in African American Baseball Histories, but it's all the same. We're going to celebrate some men that I feel like should get celebrated, who don't get celebrated very often. So I don't want to waste your time, and I want to jump right in because I have so many things I want to talk about tonight that I'm going to read these off. And then, of course, what I do is I give you things that happen on this day, and then I give you commentary. So let's jump in right here, right now. So let's go with October 2nd. Let's go to 1902. It's an all-star team featuring several of the Philadelphia Athletics defeated the Philadelphia Giants 8-2 in Philadelphia. Kid Carter tossed an 8-hitter, but the Giants made 6 errors behind him. Buck Freeman of the Boston American League team came to bat 5 times and failed to get a hit. Sox Seabold, who batted .316 for the Athletics in 1902, picked up 2 of the hits off Carter. So Kid Carter, he was one of the outstanding African American baseball pitchers at the turn of the century. So, but a lot of people don't realize that these African American teams were actually playing teams from the American National League. So can you imagine a team from the American National League and someone coming to play them that you never heard of, you don't really know that much about, and they would play them and in many cases beat them or out-pitch them or out-hit them. But these players that you would see that would do this were not actually in people's minds because of racism and all the things that go with the history of America. They didn't believe these guys could even play on that level. And they accepted, in many cases, an inferior brand of baseball in the American National League simply because of racism. And that diversity that should have been there was never there. But as you can see by some of these games, that all players were highly competitive, and had these men been allowed to play, they would have changed the course of baseball history. And Buck Freeman, this guy was a big-time player there, and playing with Boston in the American League, big-time player, goes over 5 against Kid Carter. Growing up, I could go to Mike Macmillan's encyclopedia. I could pull up Buck Freeman, find out about him and everything. Just recently, probably in the last 15 years, have we been able to go, like now, to the internet to pull up something on people like Kid Carter. And we don't know enough about Kid Carter because they didn't write enough about these guys. So anyway, just want to tell you this game. So actually a black team playing the Philadelphia Athletics. Just imagine that. All right, let's go to October 2nd, 1906. We're going to go right back to the Philadelphia Giants. So this is the Philadelphia Giants and the Cuban ex-Giants battle to a 4-4 tie in Norfolk, Virginia. Dan McClellan and Robert Jordan were the Philadelphia battery, and Harry Buckner and Clarence Williams were the battery for the Cuban ex-Giants. This is 1906. Now, I talk about, if you listen to me, I talk a lot about Harry Buckner all the time. Talk about Clarence Williams, too, who I feel is one of the all-time greats. He was just as good as Buck Freeman and a lot of these other guys, but he should be in the Hall of Fame. I really believe that with my whole heart. I really believe that. And I could make a good case for Dan McClellan, who was one of the outstanding lefties at that time. And at that particular time, turn of the century, Dan McClellan was pitching 300 innings a year, lefty, winning some pretty big games. I think it was 1903, it could have been 1902, but he pitched a perfect game in York, Pennsylvania. I've covered that before too. And that was Dan McClellan. Pitched a perfect game, not just a no-hitter, but a perfect game. So Dan McClellan, I could say a lot about him. And of course, Robert Jordan, anybody talks about him at all, he was a great catcher at that particular time and a first baseman. And he was at the end of his career. He had started out with the Cuban Giants and played with other teams, but he played this year with the Cuban ex-Giants, and then he went on to, I think the next year, they played with the Home Run Johnsons, Brooklyn Royal Giants, and Home Run Johnson was the manager of that team, and Jordan was a veteran player on that team. So some good ball, and he kind of wrapped up his career there by 1907. Okay, let's jump over here to October 2nd, 1909. Charles Heyman, pitcher for the Philadelphia Giants. Man, I'm all over the Philadelphia Giants tonight. hurled an 11 inning no-hit 2-2 tie game over the Leeds club at Philadelphia's Union League Park. In his long appearance, Heyman struck out 4 and walked 5. Interesting thing, Heyman didn't live that long after this. I think he had passed away probably by 1908, 1909, somewhere in there. But he was a good pitcher, and he does appear in one of the Philadelphia Giants team pictures that is readily available. So, like to talk about him. But when I was growing up, I'm reading baseball, and I would always hear about Harvey Haddix, and he had an extra inning no hitter. Somebody looked that up for me and put something in here. But Harvey Haddix had I think it was an 11 inning no hitter. But guess what? None of this stuff is new. Most everything that you can imagine that happened in the National American League happened outside, and Negro League players achieved those same feats. So here's Charles Heyman. Do you know anything about Charles Heyman? Probably not. This is just another guy that I'm trying to keep alive, trying to keep his name going by doing this day in black baseball history. Let's go to another one. We're going to jump to 1910. October 2nd, 1910. I always like these games. I like these games with the big scores, right? I mean, somebody got crushed. So I put here, the Chicago Leland Giants crushed the Ridgewood team in Brooklyn, New York by a 21-7 score. Frank Duncan and John Henry Lloyd each had 4 hits, right? And Lloyd and Pete Hill scored 5 runs each in the big win. Boy, you can talk about a lot of stuff. I talk about Frank Duncan from Macon, Georgia a lot. Of course, John Henry Lloyd, you probably heard of him. He was actually from Florida originally, but he ended up being one of the all-time great shortstops. And he is a member of the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. So he's just a great player. And so is Pete Hill. So it just so happens that Lloyd and Pete Hill scored 5 runs in this big win. And that team that they played for, the Chicago Leland Giants, man, that was a powerhouse team. I've got an entire book. I don't have a copy in front of me, though, to show you the cover. But if you go ahead and look at Phil S. Dixon's Great Team Series, the 1910 Chicago Leland Giants, it is a Best of Illinois award winner for history. And guys, you will love that book. But guess what? It's not for the faint of heart. It's for the serious baseball fan. No pictures in it. Now, if you like pictures, I do have a book called the Negro Baseball Leagues of Photographic History. It has 650 photographs. Guys, I've been doing things that have been making a difference. And I always tell people, when I think about a book I want to write, I think about books I would have liked to have seen when I was a kid that weren't there for me. So I'm trying to make sure that I leave them there for you. All right, so we can go from there. Let's go to another one. We're going to jump to 1917. October 2nd, 1917. Mike Flanagan, a hurler for the All Nations, pitched both ends of a doubleheader to defeat the Indianapolis ABCs by an 8-3 score in one game and 3-2 in the second game. And Flanagan pitched a 9-hitter in game 1 and a 5-hitter in the abbreviated 5-inning nightcap. So here we go. That's a feat. Now, the All Nations, you need to know about them. The All Nations were J.L. Wilkins' team and a guy named Gall, J.E. Gall. They had that team, they operate the All Nations. And they started about 1911. And they had various nationalities on the team. And once again, it was such a radical idea that they couldn't travel on the train together. So they had to have their own special Pullman car. So in addition to John Donaldson, Jose Mendez played for him, Cristobal Torrente played for him. They called him Jack McKinney. I have his real name in my records, but they had the first ever Japanese professional baseball player for them. They had Sam Crow, who was a Native American who played for them. They had Steno, who was an Italian who played for them. And so they had a real mix of players. And this is a mix that you don't get. So when Jackie Robinson breaks the color barrier, we know about Jackie Robinson, but there were color barriers being broken all along the way, and the All Nations were one of them. That was J.L. Wilkinson's team. J.L. Wilkinson is actually buried here in Kansas City. He passed away. He's entombed in Kansas City here, and lots of history there. And so Mike Flanagan, you think he was a black guy or white guy? I think he was a white guy, Mike Flanagan. Matter of fact, I know he was. But he pitched both ends of a doubleheader. That's a great feat. And when I do these, this day, you will see other people who pitch both ends. Smokey Joe Williams did it. Smokey Joe, sometimes I call him Cyclone Joe Williams because that was his name when he came up from the South. Dick Redding did it. Dick Whitworth did it. Bullet Rogan tried to do it in the 1925. He ended up winning the first game and losing the second game. But he tried to pitch both ends of a doubleheader, and Willie Foster against Willie Foster, and Willie Foster ended up winning both games. Actually, Willie Foster won the second game. So anyway, so lots of people tried the feat, and there were guys in the American National League who tried that same feat, but it happened more outside of the American National League. Just want to let you know that. Okay, let's go. Let's go to 1922. Interesting one. October 2nd, 1922. The St. Louis Stars defeated the American League Detroit Tigers 5-4 by a 5-4 score in St. Louis, Missouri. Branch Russell, Oscar Charleston, and Charles Blackwell each collected 2 hits. And then Charleston also added a stolen base. Now I did, years ago, I interviewed Branch Russell's widow in St. Louis. I used to go down to St. Louis, and Cool Papa Bell was down there. Tweed Webb was quite helpful. And they would take me around to meet some of these people. And I met so many widows down there. Zumpfer, I remember, what's his name, Charles Zumpfer, I remember meeting his widow. And of course I met Russell's widow. And this is how, when I did my photographic history back in 1992, this is how I illustrated that book, by just going out and talking to families, and they would give me pictures that I could illustrate my book with. I remember Zumpfer. He had played with Cleveland and the Cleveland Tate Stars and a few other teams, but his wife didn't have a photograph of him as a baseball player, so she gave me one of him as a small child, probably 8 or 9, 10 years old, and I use that in my book, and that's probably one of the real good pictures you have of him at a young age. So yeah, that's an interesting book. It's out of print, but if you can get it on used books, man, you want to add that. If you're serious about baseball, not just the Negro Leagues, but baseball, that's one you want to add. And of course, it was a Casey Award winner back in 1992. As you can tell, I've been at this for a hot minute. So here we go. All right, let's go to, okay, right now the 1925 World Series is going on. So I think yesterday we did game 1. So October 2nd, 1925, Hillsdale Pete Cockrell defeated Kansas City Monarchs 5-3 in game 2 of the 1925 World Series. And the game was played in Kansas City. Yeah, in 25, they were playing at Muehlebach Field. Interesting thing about Muehlebach Field, the first game I ever saw was actually on that same turf. Turns out that Muehlebach Field is what it started out. The guy who owned a local brewery and a hotel, he started that hotel team off. Actually, Muehlebach Hotel is still here in Kansas City. And then it was later on picked up by the Yankees. Colonel Rupert had it, so it was Rupert Stadium for a minute. It was Blues Stadium, which was a minor league team for a while. Johnny Kling had some ownership in the team, the great Cub catcher. And then in 1955, okay, then the A's came to Kansas City, and they took it from a single deck stadium, a minor league stadium, and they put an upper deck in the park. And so the first time that I went to see a baseball game, I went to Municipal Stadium, which is what it was called when I came along. And the first games that I saw professional baseball were the Kansas City Royals in '69. Interesting thing, in 1967, I was all into Kansas City A's, but I couldn't get anybody to take me to the ballpark. My parents weren't baseball fans, and so I just couldn't get there. So, but in '69, I got there, and the interesting thing was, I took myself to the game, and I was a true fan. I really love baseball, and I still do today. And so anyway, I got in honestly, and that's the history. So that same field where they played the 1925 World Series between Kansas City Monarchs and Hillsdale, I was there. I did interview several people who were on that team. I interviewed Dink Marple, Actually, Dink Mopper was injured in 25, so he didn't really play that series, which is another reason Kansas City didn't win, along with Bullet Rogan was injured too. But I did interview Mopper. I interviewed Bullet Rogan's son. On top of it, I interviewed Clint Thomas. I interviewed Newt Allen. I interviewed George Sweat. And it seemed like there was one more person I interviewed, but I don't think there's anyone alive who actually interviewed that many people that played in that series. And I was fortunate to record Clint Thomas. I have letters from George Sweat, no recording, but I was able to do that. Interesting thing about George Sweat, my stepfather, he was from Humboldt, Kansas, and he was able to, through his connections, get me connected to George Sweat, who was living in Los Angeles. Now, George Sweat was from Humboldt, Kansas. So sometimes who you know, man, God will put people out there, and you'll be surprised how it works out. Okay, so we're going to go. I have just a couple more. I talked about him just the other day. October 2nd, 1932. Talked about this young man. Maury Wills was born in Washington, D.C. And, of course, he had set the stolen base title in 1962, broke Ty Cobb's record for the most stolen bases in a season. And of course, today, now we get to tell you when he was born. And I did get a chance to actually shake the hand of Maury Wills. And finally, the last person, I did get a chance to meet him also. And that was Bob Gibson. And on October 2nd, 1968, Bob Gibson struck out 17 members of the Detroit Tigers, set the all-time World Series record. That is so interesting. I remember watching that series, and I especially remember the series with the, I think it was let's see, who did the Red Sox play? I think it was the Cardinals, if I'm correct, I think it was the Cardinals. But I remember the Red Sox because that year I met my first professional baseball player, was Reggie Smith. And I've never talked to Reggie, but I would like to tell Reggie thank you, because I was playing for our little church-sponsored team. We were called the Terrace Tigers. And there was a guy on my team, William Patton. He was in my 5th grade class. And we were playing in the summer, and he said, hey, my cousin plays for the Red Sox, and he's going to come today and talk to us. And Reggie Smith came and talked to us and gave us a little pep talk. I'm in the 5th grade. Man, couldn't hit the side of a barn. But I still love baseball because I saw other people hit the ball, and I wanted to be like them. And so I got a chance to meet Reggie Smith. That year, the Red Sox went to the World Series, and I had a chance to look and see somebody that I knew, that someone I had just met, and they were on TV. I had never met anyone that was on TV. And so, you know, we only had 3 channels back then, guys. So if you got on TV, man, that's a big, big deal back then. So you have all these cable channels, and everybody can get on TV now. But back then, you got on TV, man, that was something to be proud of. All right, so we started, where we start? We ended in 1968 with Bob Gibson, and we started off with Kid Carter in 1902. Man, we covered what, about 65 years or something like that? 65, 66 years of baseball, just like that, in 18 minutes. Man, if you like what we're doing here, if you like this kind of action, if you really like to be engaged with this kind of baseball history, subscribe so you'll know when I'm coming on. And it's going to get better and better and better, because I've only been at this for about a couple of months, but I've interviewed so many people and knew so many families. And you know, I didn't even mention Bob Gibson. But let me tell you Bob Gibson's story, and then I'm cutting out of here. And I'm going to get out of here about 21 minutes. I had a photograph, and it was a photograph, and it's in, I think it's in Janice Bruce's book about the Kansas City Monarchs. I forget what the name of her book was. If you look up Janet Bruce, and it was about I want to say maybe about 1984, 85, something like that. It's a picture, and I let her use this picture. And it was a picture of Buck O'Neill recruiting this young guy that he said was Bob Gibson. So the picture was in the book. And so Bob Gibson was doing a signing at a baseball card show in Kansas City. And so I invited Buck down. Now at this particular time, they didn't invite Negro Leaguers to card shows. So we're breaking the barrier with the Negro League. So actually, the first time Buck O'Neill went to a card show, he came as my guest, and I paid him to come to the show, right? So anyway, Bob Gibson's at the show, and we pull this picture out, and Buck's telling him how, he tried to recruit him, and Gibson looks at the picture. He said, "That's not me." And Buck said, that is you." He said, "No, that's not me." He said, I know the guy, but can't remember his name, but that's not me." And so Buck thought that it was Bob Gibson all those years he was trying to recruit, and really it was another guy from Omaha. And Gibson, if you ever knew Gibson, Gibson was a no-nonsense kind of guy. He didn't play around. He said, "That is not me." I'll never forget that story. And that took at a car show. And that picture is still out there. And when you see that picture, people are still saying, "This is Bob Gibson." And if Bob Gibson was alive today, he would say, "That ain't me." So anyway, that's pretty bad English, but that's not me. We'll just clean it up for, like Dizzy Dean used to. He used to come in and say all kind of stuff. And then English teachers didn't want their kids listening to him. So I want English teachers to invite their children to come and listen to me. So anyway, that does it for tonight, guys. Just want to get out of here, and I do thank you for joining, and I thank everyone who subscribed. I appreciate you so much, and guys, I'm hoping to get to 1,000 subscribers, and we're going to keep on pushing for that. So we're picking up just a few every day, and like I said, I've only been at it a couple months, and a lot of people don't even know I exist out here yet. But I've been out here for 45 years, and I'm getting ready to do, I guess, my 10th book here, and I count that because my revisions almost like a new book, and my next revision is going to be a revision of the 1905 Philadelphia Giants book. Then I'm going to go on to a couple of new things that, that once again, when I was a kid, I wish somebody would have written. So I'm going to do it. So thank you for coming in tonight. That does it for me. I'm going to try to knock some things out this weekend. It's going to be a busy weekend, of course, here at the Negro Leagues Museum. They're giving their Hall of Game, and so I'll get a chance to go down and meet Cito Gaston and who else? Willie Randolph's going to be there. Ron Emanuel's going to be there. Dusty Baker's going to be there. And believe me, I've got something for all of them to sign. So I got to pay for the VIP so I can get in the room. I got a Willie Randolph bat, man. I need that gold pen. If you know where I can get a gold pen, I'm going to go down to Hobby Lobby or somewhere and see if they have a gold pen or some kind of store, because I've got to get that bat, brown bat, beautiful brown bat, and it'll be in my collection. So thank you, guys. I'll be back tomorrow, and I'm going to try to do some live from the event, the Negro League event. So hopefully, I don't know if it'll be live or recorded, but we'll get something, okay? Thank you, and you have a nice evening. And thanks, everyone, again. Always appreciate you so much.